Now, the next topic we're going to talk about is avoiding nominalizations. Now, we've already talked about nominalizations in some ways in earlier lessons. Whenever we talked about abstract nouns, most of the time those abstract nouns were nominalizations. Now, I didn't introduce the term during those lessons. I'm introducing the term now, but you'll recognize examples of nominalizations once you see them. But first, let's define what nominalizations are. So, nominalizations are nouns that are formed from other parts of speech. Academics love them. So do lawyers, bureaucrats, and business writers. I call them zombie nouns because they cannibalize active verbs, suck the lifeblood from adjectives, and substitute abstract entities for human beings. The proliferation of nominalizations in a discursive formation may be an indication of a tendency towards pomposity and abstraction. This is a quote from Helen Sword in her essay on zombie nouns. Let's look at some examples of nominalizations or zombie nouns in scientific writing. So on this slide, you'll see 2 examples and 2 revisions. And you'll see that the nominalizations are underlined and bolded, and other nouns that we can convert to verbs are underlined. So the first sentence says, depletion of KIF4 resulted in a decrease in the amount of condensin 1 on chromosomes, and depletion of condensin 1 caused a reduction in KIF4 levels. So nominalizations often end in the tion suffix, depletion, reduction, and in the second example you'll see foundation, collection, preservation, evaluation, utilization. So what we should do is change depletion to the active verb deplete, or its past tense, depleted. So we have to reorganize the sentence to do this. When KIF4 was depleted, the amount of condensin 1 on chromosomes decreased. And when condensin 1 was depleted, KIF4 levels were lower. So I've changed this to a cause and effect relationship. And instead of talking about a decrease in something, we say something decreased. Second example, this information could lay an empirical foundation for the collection, preservation, evaluation, and utilization of these genetic resources. So we have these nominalizations, which are abstract nouns, but they're formed from verbs: collect, preserve, evaluate, utilize. And utilize should be changed to use in most cases, including this one. So the way I would revise this sentence is, this information could lay an empirical foundation for collecting, preserving, evaluating, and using these genetic resources. Now, foundation is still there. I didn't get rid of that because, again, the goal is not to get rid of all abstract nouns or all nominalizations. Sometimes they are useful. You don't necessarily always need to get rid of passive voice. There are times when the passive voice is preferred. So when would that be? When would you prefer to use a passive voice? One time you would use a passive voice is when the agent is less important relative to the information that you're telling, and you want to de-emphasize the agent. Secondly, you might not know who the agent is. So if I went outside to go to the grocery store and my car is gone, I could say, my car was stolen. I don't know who stole the car. I don't know who the agent is. So I would put my car as the emphasis of the sentence. My car was stolen. Other times the agent is obvious, so you might be able to just leave it out and use passive voice. And other times you might want to be developing a topic and keep the flow of ideas. So you don't want to be putting agents into the sentences in that case. And also you might intentionally introduce some passive sentences into a paragraph just to keep variety in the sentences. So you don't want the topic to be an agent every single sentence in a paragraph. And this is a way you could introduce variety into your writing. Now, of course, as we mentioned in the materials and methods section, passive voice is the norm and it's preferred. So it's totally fine to completely use passive voice all through the materials and methods section. But when you're in the introduction, discussion section, I would recommend most of the time using active voice, but on occasion, you could intentionally use passive voice construction as well.